Happy Saturday, fellas. Hopefully this won't be too long because I got a Patreon exclusive live stream that starts in roughly about an hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half. But I had to jump on. Now, a lot of what I'm going to say, per usual, is going to be, to one degree or another, repetitive. But as they say, repetition is the mother of all skill, or something like that. See, here's what a lot of you guys don't get. I'll start here. I had a guy write me a response to my last video. Well, two responses I want to cover. One, a guy wrote a response. He said, and he invoked the name of David X. And I can't remember his exact words, but he said, Alan, that guy you're talking about in the video who said that he was direct and you were ultra direct, he said, I kind of agree with that. And I think David X would even agree with that, because David X once said there's different levels of direct. So I'm not so sure that you said that guy was indirect because you feel like his behavior is mode 2. But I'm not so sure his behavior is mode 2. I think his behavior, is to some degree direct. I disagree. And if David X said that, I don't know if he said that, but let's assume he did, then I would respectfully even disagree with David X. Again, I already gave my definition of direct. And I stand hard on that definition. I don't think there's like different levels of direct, like 5 different levels of direct or 10 different levels of direct. Direct is direct. Again, I'm going to repeat it again. Here's my definition of direct versus indirect when it comes to expressing your sexual desires, interests, and intentions to a woman. Number 1, if a woman has to guess and or assume, she has to guess and or assume what type of companionship you're seeking from her, then that means you're being indirect. Plain and simple. If a woman, number 1, if a woman's not sure if you want platonic friendship from her, a business relationship from her, or a sexual relationship from her, then you're being indirect. If she's not sure whether you want a purely platonic friendship with her, some type of business relationship with her, which would also be platonic, or intimate, sexually intimate relationship with her, that's number 1. That means you're being indirect. And even if she knows you want to have sex with her, if she's not sure whether or not you want long-term sex versus short-term sex, and probably more importantly, she's not sure if you want monogamous sex versus non-monogamous sex, that means you're being indirect. Plain and simple. That means you're being indirect. Direct is when you make it clear, number 1, that you want sex with a woman, as opposed to anything platonic, that you want sex with a woman. And number 2 is when you make it specifically clear what type of sex you want, such as long-term monogamous, long-term non-monogamous, otherwise known as polyamory, or an open relationship, short-term monogamous, which is known as serial monogamy, or short-term non-monogamous, which is simply known as casual sex. That's direct. Now, here's what I do believe. There's different types of direct in terms of language. Yeah, like that relates to my 3 variations of Mode 1, like Mode 1 hardcore, standard Mode 1, and Mode 1.5. All 3 of those are direct. You make your sexual desires, interests, and intentions known directly. But there's differences in language. Similarly, like there's a difference between Mode 1 and Mode 4. Both mode 1 and mode 4 represent being direct, but the difference is mode 4 has underlying connotations of anger, bitterness, resentment, frustration, and even misogynistic hatred. So that's one of the differences. But again, what that guy that I mentioned in the last video was describing, that's not direct. That's mode 2. What he described was basically mode 2. What he said again was that he said he's direct with women as far as letting them know that he wants to have sex with them, but he's vague and ambiguous with women as far as whether or not he wants sex within the context of a long-term relationship or sex within the context of casual sex. See, just the fact that he's vague and ambiguous about that makes him mode 2. That's the difference between mode 2 and mode 1. That's the difference between mode 2 and mode 1. So anyway, that was one response. I got another response, which is the main one I want to concentrate on. I had a guy, he wrote me, and he said, Alan, I'm going to tell you why you don't have as many followers, YouTube followers, as other PUAs and dating coaches, why you don't have as many Patreon subscribers as other PUAs and dating coaches, and why you just generally don't get as much respect as other PUAs and dating coaches. And I was like, oh, really? Let me hear this. He said, here's your problem, man. You totally disregard the concept of rapport building. Where did we hear that from before? Where did we hear that from before? If you remember when I did that response to the black male content creator who goes by the pseudonym The Saint in the Center. The Saint in the Center. That was his main argument against mode 1. That was exactly it. That's most indirect guys' argument against mode 1. That's most indirect guys' argument against mode 1. But that's what this guy said. He said, your main problem is you don't seem to understand or emphasize the concept of rapport building and emotional bonding. Rapport building and emotional bonding. He said, man, you have to indulge in rapport building and emotional bonding in order to get a woman in bed. You just have to. He said there's only 2 exceptions, I would say there are, to that rule. And that would be, and of course he went to one of my invalid arguments. He said the 2 exceptions is if you're a man who's just, a woman just considers just drop dead gorgeous and just super duper duper sexy, drop dead gorgeous and just super duper duper sexy. He said that would be an exception. That relates to my invalid argument number 4. Invalid argument number 4. And then he said the second exception would be, if this relates to another invalid argument. Invalid argument number 3. He said the other exception is if you talk to a woman that's just a straight up slut. Just, a 2-bit slut. He basically said, in so many words, he said, the only time I believe you can be successful with mode 1 is if you're a man that's just drop dead gorgeous, a man that a woman considers to be drop dead gorgeous and super duper sexy, and or the woman herself is just a highly promiscuous 2-bit slut. He said, other than those 2 exceptions, he said, any other situation, he said, you have to indulge in some degree of rapport building and emotional bonding in order to get women in bed. Insert dog face here. Man, again, I'm not surprised by this comment. Because I would say over the last roughly 20 years, man, pretty much all guys who are conventional PUAs and indirect verbal game dating coaches believe that. So he's not an exception. All guys who are conventional PUAs and indirect verbal game dating coaches believe that. They believe that. I would say even more so, they firmly believe that. I remember back in, I think it was early spring of 2017. I'm debating whether to say this brother's name. Let's say there was a black male content creator, red pill enthusiast. I don't know if I would call him a dating coach, but at minimum, he's a red pill enthusiast. And he was doing a live stream with Rollo Tomasi and a couple other guys. And it was on a Saturday, like today, it was on a Saturday, and I happened to jump in the chat room. And at one point, this black male content creator, manosphere content creator, he said, guys, what you need to understand is that women are emotional creatures. Women are emotional creatures. What does that mean? He said, and I can't remember if he said this exactly, so I might be slightly paraphrasing the word, but essentially he said, it is a mandatory prerequisite that you have to establish some degree of emotional connection, emotional bonding with that woman before she feels comfortable enough to open her legs for you. And I immediately in the chat room, I said, yo, brother, that ain't true. I said, that ain't true. And then I think Rollo noticed at first. Rollo was like, oh, we got Alan in the chat room. And then the brother who I was disagreeing with, he gave me my props. He said, oh, it's Alan Roger Currie. You know, he's an experienced dating coach. He said, so I respect his disagreements. He said, why don't you come on up on the panel and express your disagreement and, you know, we'll talk it out. I said, okay. So I came up on the panel and I basically said, man, I said, that's the problem with a lot of men. And see, this relates to my video I did earlier this year called Men Who Suffer from Dr. Sigmund Freud's Madonna Horror Complex Don't Understand Women's Sexually Duplicitous Nature. They don't understand it. And when you say stuff like that, that lets me know you don't understand the true sexually duplicitous nature of women. Dude, I would say probably 90% of the women I've had casual sex with, I didn't have no emotional bond with them. I didn't take time to develop no emotional bond with them or any rapport building with them. I'll tell you that for a fact. I did not take time to engage in any type of rapport building and or emotional bonding with women before I fucked them. Women don't require that, man. They don't. That's a myth. If there's at least one other author who co-signs with me on that, was the author I always mentioned, Daniel Bergner. He basically talks about that in his book, What Women Want. He talks about that how men believe that that's what women require before having sex, but he said it's not true. No. Here's when women require rapport building and emotional bonding is when they're leaning towards being in a long-term relationship with you, and even more so marriage with you. When a woman is leaning towards being in a long-term relationship with you or marriage with you, yeah, she does usually require some degree of rapport building and emotional bonding. If she's talking about like having your kid, yeah. But even in that situation, there's exceptions. Even in that situation, there's exceptions. Wait, my camera, I'm on my other phone. Even in that situation, there's exceptions. Because we all know, man, there's women who have gotten into disingenuous marriages and disingenuous long-term relationships. See, here, I don't want to get too lengthy because, again, my time is limited. But in a nutshell, man, a lot of you men keep treating women like they're totally different than us, man. You treat women like they're different than us, and they're not. Women have the same delineations with men that we have with women. In the same way we look at certain women as, girlfriend material, wife material, and then we look at other women as basically just casual fuck buddy material. Women have that same delineation. They have that same delineation. I talk about that in my backstory that I included in No Free Attention. Well, the first time a woman broke that down for me was when I was in college. This woman, she was a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. And she broke that down for me. Women have the same delineations. They have guys they look at as boyfriend material, husband material, then they have other guys they look at as just casual fuck buddy material. And for those guys, they don't need any rapport building or emotional bonding. And see, as soon as you say that to indirect guys and conventional PUAs, they say, oh, well, then that means that woman's a slut. What's your fucking definition of a slut then? Any woman who engages in casual sex? Man, get your judgmental ass out of here. I've been in bed with married women. Obviously, somebody thought she was quality enough to put a ring on her finger. Drops mic. Y'all know my history, but when I was between roughly 17 and 37, when I was between 17 and 37, I had sex with approximately 40 women that were either married, engaged to be married, or had a long-term boyfriend. You saying all 40 of those women were just, two-bit sluts that have just dropped their panties for anybody? And get the fuck out of here. You don't know women like I do. You don't. Don't try to act like you do. And one of the number one ways I can tell when a man really don't know women is when he thinks that you got to engage in rapport building and emotional bonding as a prerequisite to sleeping with a woman. That's plain and simply, that's emotional manipulation. I talk about that all the time. See, there's a difference between seduction and dishonesty and emotional manipulation. If you're one of those guys that feel like rapport building and emotional bonding is a mandatory prerequisite for engaging in a long-term relationship, engaging in casual sex with a woman, then that means you're a proponent of emotional manipulation. This is what the chick Crystal was talking about 2 videos ago. This is exactly what the woman Crystal was talking about. When I was asking about which would she prefer, a guy to be mode 1 or mode 2. And that's what she basically said. She said, I don't want a guy to be mode 2 with me because that would make me think he wants a relationship with me. And if he ends up fucking me and then just going ghost on me, I'm going to feel like that guy misled me and manipulated me. And she was like, I'm going to become bitter and resentful towards that guy. And that's one of them situations you asking for a woman to say, he date raped me. Or if not, get a false date rape charge, you're going to get your tires slashed. I told y'all about a friend of my cousin. He got shot in the head for doing that type of shit, emotionally manipulating a woman. Yeah, that was a guy who was a friend of my cousin's, man. He manipulated this woman. He toyed with her emotions. She came to his crib and shot him in the head. Man, I ain't a proponent of that shit. I read chapter 5 in my book, No Free Attention. I go in on guys who are a combination of liars and emotional manipulators. I have no respect for them, man. I think they're scum of the earth. It's real talk. Guys who are a combination of a liar and an emotional manipulator, no respect for them whatsoever, man. Scum of the earth. Scum of the earth. I remember when I used to post on this message board that's now defunct, called the London Seduction Society Forum. I used to post on there, I think from 2011 to 2013. And I remember one time somebody started a post, I think it was 2011, basically asking, because I used to get into it with a lot of indirect guys on that forum. And so this one guy, he just started this post called, why you guys always hating on Alan Roger Currie because he was a fan of mine. And that's what most of the indirect guys ended up saying. Most of the indirect guys and conventional PUAs basically, in one way or another, basically said, the main problem I have with Alan Roger Currie is he seems to ignore the concepts of rapport building and emotional bonding with women. That's one of the key things that has to take place if you want to get a woman in bed, with the exception, what do you think the exception was for them? They said, with the exception of if the woman's just like a total slag, which is the British term for slut. They was like, that's the only, they went on to say in so many words, the only way you're going to get a woman in bed, get a woman to agree to have casual sex with you, be in mode 1, and not engaging in any type of rapport building or emotional bonding, is if that woman's a slag. I remember the first guy to say that was that guy Yad. Yad. He was probably one of the first guys, at least from the European clique, to say that. Yeah, that's what, again, just about all conventional PUAs and indirect verbal game dating coaches, that's what they believe. They firmly believe. I tell you a guy by name, other than Yad and a few others that I got into it about, if anybody remembers, particularly if you were there, at the 2012 Direct Dating Summit in Las Vegas, there was an Australian PUA named James Marshall. And towards the end of Sasha's boot camp, there was the conference on Saturday and Sunday, and then Sasha led this boot camp on Monday and Tuesday. And as the boot camp was coming to a close on Tuesday, I don't want to get into a long story, but me and James Marshall, we got into it, man. I mean, not so much on a personal level, but definitely on a philosophical level. Yeah, we bumped heads big time. Because it came down to, that's what he was basically promoting. James Marshall was basically promoting the idea that in order to have casual sex with women who are 7 and above, you got to engage in some degree of rapport building and emotional bonding. And yet he was calling himself direct. And I basically told him, I said, man, that ain't direct. That ain't direct. Being dishonest and misleading and emotionally manipulative is not direct. That's indirect like a motherfucker. And all my fans who were there agree with me. I said, that's indirect to the motherfucker, man. Ain't nothing about that direct. Ain't nothing about that direct. I'm sick. I said this on my very last video, man. I'm sick of indirect guys labeling themselves as direct when they're not. Like those guys, Troy Francis and James Tusk. Those guys are not direct. Those guys are not direct. Quote me on that. Tell them I said it. Even though I said it already in the video. Those guys are not direct. Those guys are indirect. Again, I'm going to repeat my definition even once again. Here's when you being direct. Is before you have sex with a woman for the first time, she knows exactly what your specific interest is. If your interest is short-term, non-monogamous, casual sex, she knows that specifically before she opens her legs for you. If it's short-term monogamous, she knows that. If it's long-term non-monogamous, she knows that. If it's long-term monogamous, she knows that. If a woman has to guess and or assume what your specific sexual desires, interests, and intentions are, you're not direct. You're indirect. You're indirect. Well, show me a video, since guys want to always emphasize these infield videos. Show me an infield video where a guy is direct like me. Where a guy's direct like me. I say no less than 98, 99% of the infield videos I've seen produced by conventional PUAs, indirect verbal game dating coaches, what do they show you doing? All they show you doing is being a combination of, all they show a guy doing is being a combination of friendly and flirtatious. Friendly and flirtatious. That's all they show a guy doing, man. They don't really show no guy being really direct with these women. There might be a handful of exceptions, but most of the infield videos I've seen, they just show guys being friendly and flirtatious. And this takes me back to the London Seduction Society, that same post I was talking about, or same thread, discussion thread. There was a guy who ended up interjecting. He was from London, but he was a brother. I didn't know it at the time he posted, but I found out later he was a brother. But he broke it down, man. He broke it down. He basically said a lot of stuff I've said myself, but still, he broke it down. He said, and I'm going to be slightly paraphrasing some of his words, but this is what he said. He said, I tell you what, guys, indirect guys, and most PUAs hate on Alan Roger Currie. He said, see, the indirect camp, they want you to believe that two things. If you're able to get a woman's phone number, and if you're able to get a woman to indulge in a 20 to 30 minute or longer conversation that is a combination of friendly and flirtatious, then that means that 90% chance you should be able to get that woman in bed. He said that's what most guys from the indirect camp believe. They believe that if you're able to get a woman's phone number, and even more so, you're able to get a woman to engage in at least a 20 to 30 minute conversation with you that is friendly and flirtatious, then 90% chance you should be able to get that woman in bed. And if you aren't able to get that woman in bed, it's because you did something wrong. It's because you fucked up. It's because you weren't confident enough, or you didn't follow that particular PUA or dating coach's advice properly. That basically the reason why you didn't get in bed because you did something wrong. He said, whereas Alan Roger Currie comes from a totally different angle. His basic belief is phone numbers don't mean shit. And that's the truth. I've always said that. He said Alan Roger Currie's attitude is phone numbers don't mean shit. That don't mean shit. He says, secondly, Alan Roger Currie believes that lengthy conversations that are friendly and flirtatious don't mean shit. Because his philosophy believes that even women who are manipulative time wasters will engage in a lengthy conversation with a man that's friendly and flirtatious, which is true. He said, and that's why most guys from the Indirect camp don't like Alan Roger Currie. Because he quickly eliminates their two main things, which is that getting a woman's number is important, and being able to get a woman engaged in a lengthy conversation that's friendly and flirtatious is important. Whereas Alan Roger Currie says both of those things are bullshit. And they are. They don't mean shit. A woman agreeing to go out on a date with you don't mean shit. Don't mean shit. Woman talking to you for 2 hours over the phone don't mean shit. Don't mean shit. The only thing that means something is when a woman tells you either face-to-face or over the phone, damn, you get my pussy dripping wet. I can't wait to feel your dick in my pussy. That's the only thing that matters. And I've heard that hundreds, if not thousands of times.
Yes, sir.
Say it again.
Yes, sir.
Who's the king?
Alan, you're the king.
Say it again.
Alan, you're the king. You're dominating me.
Say it again.
Alan, you're dominating me right now. Mode 1.
Mode 1.
Daddy, can I go, please? You're the king.
Say it again.
Oh, you're the fucking king. Yes.
You're the king, Alan.
AKA the king of verbal seduction. You know, it's the tone of your voice, how seductive your intonations are, the vibrations that you could just reach out over the phone lines and stroke a woman's breast just by the sound of your voice. How you could make her pussy so wet just by the sound of your voice. That's actually very hot.
So you said my show was what?
I said your show is powerful.
Oh, say it again.
Your show is powerful.
I bet the king would fuck me really good.
Who's the king?
Alan Roger Currie.
Oh, yeah. Who's the king?
Alan Roger Currie. The king.
The king.
The king.
I have to agree with you on the communication piece, because I actually did take a session with Alan Roger Currie, and he gave me a line that I did not think was going to work, and it worked. And I was like, what the fuck?
Oh my God!
Curry guys, man, he's the master. He's the master of the verbal seduction. He got that communication piece down pat.
It really worked. It just simply worked, and I just didn't think it was going to work at all.
Some guys have natural handles. Some guys have a better natural shot, but you can always improve your shot. And sex is damn sure something you can fucking learn. Look, dude, you want to learn how to talk better? I'm hiring Alan Roger Currie to get my dirty talk game on, because it's always been something I want to get better at.
Verbal seduction, man. I'm like, clearly, this guy's the Michael Jordan of seduction. Like, come on now.